is the husband's consent and knowledge required for the validity of khul, divorce, at the wife's request or not? First, we must distinguish between two things: the husband's knowledge and the husband's consent. For example, if a woman goes to court and obtains khul from her husband without his knowledge, then this khul is invalid by consensus of the Ummah Muslim community. In other words, the husband must be aware of the khul. Exactly. However, scholars have differed on whether khul is permissible without the husband's consent. For example, a woman wants to seek khul. So she goes to the judge and requests khul, and the husband knows about it but does not want the khul. Is khul valid in this case without the husband's consent, or is it not valid? According to the jurists of the four schools of thought, khul is not valid except with the husband's consent. But it is recommended for the husband to grant the wife khul, meaning it is better for him to agree to the khul. And this indicates that consent is a condition for the validity of khul. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said to the wife of Thabit ibn Qais, will you return his garden to him? She said yes. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to him, accept the garden and divorce her once. So they said this is evidence that consent is required, because he must say you are divorced or I have divorced you, and this requires consent. This is the first opinion. The second opinion is that of some Hanbali jurists, and it is one of the two opinions of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and it is also the opinion of Shaykh Ibn Baz and Ibn Uthaymin. And this opinion, and Allah knows best, is the correct one. If the wife dislikes her husband and chooses separation, the husband is obliged to comply with that. And Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on him, says, if the wife dislikes her husband and chooses to separate from him, then she ransoms herself from him by returning what she took as dowry and absolving him of any obligations he owes her, and he divorces her as stated in the Quran and Sunnah and as agreed upon by the Imams. And Imam Ibn Mufli, may Allah have mercy on him, mentioned that the statements of Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on him, differed on this matter. At times he said that it is obligatory for the husband to grant khul, divorce, if the wife requests it. And some of the virtuous judges of Al-Maqdis in Al-Sham enforced this. That is, some of the judges in Al-Sham, meaning the virtuous ones, would compel the man to grant khul as long as the woman requested it. So in that case, his consent is not required. And they said, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, will you return his garden to him? So here, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to him, accept the garden and divorce her once, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not give him a choice, but rather commanded him. If his consent had been required, the Prophet, peace be upon him, would have given him a choice. Instead, he directly ordered him to proceed with the khul, saying, accept the garden. Meaning, take back the dowry you gave her and divorce her once. And this opinion is the correct one, for a woman may dislike her husband, be unable to live with him and detest him, while he does not want to divorce her and keeps her only to cause her harm. So in this case, they must be separated. And it is permissible for her to bring the matter before a judge if one is available, and the judge may rule in her favor and grant her a khul from her husband. And even if he does not agree, on the condition that she returns to him everything she took from him and absolves him of all rights, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, will you return his garden to him? When a woman came seeking khul, will you return his garden to him? She said yes. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to him, accept the garden and divorce her once. And just as Allah, glorified and exalted be He, has permitted the husband to divorce his wife without her consent and dissolve the marriage contract between them, in that case, it is also permissible for the other contracting party, which is the wife, to dissolve the marriage contract through khul, even if the husband does not agree, but on the condition that she returns to him the entire dowry. And we know that this issue does not have a clear and explicit text, and there is no consensus on it. Rather, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, accept the garden and divorce her once. So this is a command. But is this command obligatory or merely recommended? The majority interpreted it as being recommended, while the second opinion interpreted it as obligatory. And this is the view adopted by a group of contemporary jurists. And this is what the Egyptian law has adopted. And Shaykh Ibn Baz, may Allah have mercy on him, issued a fatwa to this effect, saying that separation between them is obligatory in such a case and the husband's consent is not required. Likewise, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, may Allah have mercy on him, said that it is permissible to separate them. In fact, separation is obligatory in this case if the woman does not want to live with her husband and it harms her and she cannot bear or continue living with him. So in this situation, Islam says there should be neither harm nor reciprocating harm. So in this case, it is permissible to separate the spouses even if the husband does not consent to it. And what does Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, may Allah have mercy on him, say? This statement is strong from the perspective of the verse. In terms of the evidence, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, accept the garden and divorce her once. And because there is no harm to the husband as his money is returned to him, meaning, for example, if he had given her a dowry of 100,000, the 100,000 is returned to him. and they're remaining like this, meaning the woman is left hanging and cannot get married, and they're staying in this situation, if they really can't stand each other, as we say, and the woman cannot get married and remains under the authority of this husband whom she does not want, and he too may not want her, he just wants to keep her to harm her, then in this case, the wife has the right to request khul. Even if, for example, he neglects prayer or does not pray or drinks alcohol and such things, she has the right to take the matter to the judge, but on the condition that she returns all of the dowry, and Allah the Exalted knows best.